Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Danielle Patterson, Executive Director of Family Office at ISS Market Intelligence, and I'm so glad that you're joining us for today's Family Office Access Workshop. Before we get started, feel free. This is our brand new Zoom account, and I am hoping that our chat is enabled. If anyone can test being able to drop a message, I see. Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Brittany, Courtney, Zach. Amazing. Well, feel free now that we know chat is enabled. Um, Drop us a hello. Let us know where you're joining us from and perhaps one of the family office events you're planning to attend this year. It's always wonderful to see our incredible mix of professionals, and I love seeing where everyone is joining us from. So, as many of you know, we are entering one of the busiest family office conference seasons of the year. Between now and the end of the fall, there will be hundreds of events taking place around the world. Most people spend their time preparing their pitch. Very few spend their time preparing their approach. And ironically, it's often the difference between leaving with a stack of business cards or leaving with relationships that actually turn into conversations, opportunities, and eventually business. One of the biggest misconceptions about family offices is that success comes from delivering a perfect pitch, where in reality, the most successful relationships begin long before anyone talks about the deal. They begin with curiosity, preparation, listening, and understanding who you're actually speaking with. And that's exactly what today's workshop is about. Rather than focusing on raising capital, Melanie and AdaPia are going to share a practical framework for building relationships before, during, and after family office events. And in this workshop, I wish we could really help everyone. It should be a prerequisite before anyone goes to an event. So without further ado, I would love to introduce today's expert speakers. I am very delighted to welcome them both. They have incredible careers that have been built around helping organizations grow through authentic relationships and thoughtful positioning. So first, I would like to warmly welcome Melanie Legamaro, who has spent more than 2 decades in Citi's institutional equity sales division, where she worked alongside Fortune 500 executives, institutional investors, hedge funds, mutual funds, and family offices. Today, she advises leaders, entrepreneurs, and investors on business development, branding, strategic relationships, and sustainable growth. One of Melanie's greatest strengths is helping people translate who they are and what they do into something that others can clearly understand and confidently share. And joining her, we have AdaPia and the founder of Strategic Capital Systems. Throughout a 25-year career spanning banking, hedge funds, fintech, and private equity real estate, she's raised more than $500 million and has sat on virtually every side of the table as a GP, an LP, capital raiser, operator, and strategic advisor. Today, she helps investment managers build scalable, repeatable systems for capital formation and investor relations. So we have a jam-packed schedule, and of course, with our live audience, we want to incorporate you as much as possible. And I can see the chat is very busy. So if you are new to Zoom, you'll see at the very bottom, there is a little Q&A. If you want to put any of your questions there, I'll be sure to monitor. If it fits into the flow, we'll be sure to incorporate those, but we'll also make time at the end. And we hope that you can stay with us for the full hour. We are going to record and share the recording tomorrow. So you can also share it with friends that you know would benefit from this. And yeah, without further ado, I will turn the floor over to my 2 wonderful colleagues. Thank you both for being here.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Thanks. Hi, everyone. All right, I'm going to share my screen and then we will get started. All right, everyone see full screen? Just want to make sure. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again, Danielle. Thanks so much for having us. It's such an honor. I know you have a really wonderful audience, so many members, and the turnout is really remarkable for a very full summer season already. So, all right, everyone. So our workshop today is how to approach a family office without pitching your deal. And the title of this workshop is deliberately counterintuitive. So, and if that sounds strange, like without pitching your deal, that's exactly the point. Because our instinct when we are on the sponsor side is to lead with the deal because that is the thing that is closest to our hearts. Like we live it, we breathe it, like this is everything to us. But that's exactly what could cost you the relationship before it even starts. So today we're going to walk you through what actually works. We're going to go through 3 phases. It's very practical and it's very specific. So let's get into it. Well, I know that Danielle already introduced us, so I don't think we have to spend a lot of time on this slide, Melanie, unless you feel like you want to say a few
Nope.
more words.
Nope.
Okay. All right. All right. Let's get into it. It's going to be so good. So the 3 phases. So this is how we've structured it for you. So 3 phases, 3 tips, and 1 goal. 1 goal. It's to earn the second conversation because that's actually the only thing that matters when you're at one of these events. Like we can't go into this thinking, I am going to raise capital, I'm going to close my deal, I'm going to get married at this event, right? Like this is kind of how we need to think about it. You're not closing a deal, you're not getting a commitment, you're earning the right to have a second conversation with somebody who meets hundreds of people a year and remembers very few of them and probably defaults to the ones they know best. So when we go to events, we're either going to begin a new relationship or a series of relationships or reinforce one. This is part of it. So it's really important to have that sense of discipline and persistence to see this through, because especially with family offices, as they've become their own institutional class with a lot of power and they know it, they know people want their money, so to speak. And so we have to really approach it in a different way because they have their walls up, right? And then we're going to talk about there's different people that you're going to meet and there's different types of family offices. And Melanie has so much experience with this. So this is the order before you go. So this is where most people skip straight to the event and then wonder why nothing happened when they were at the event, other than maybe like a couple of good conversations. So preparation sets the stage for like everything that follows. And if you don't know who's in the room, what they invest in, what their buy box is, like whether they like JVs, whether they like, what asset classes they're most interested in, and like who you're actually going to be talking to, you're going to come in behind. You're going to be doing that research while you're there. And that's not what we want to do with our time there. So then our time there is in the room. So this is where it gets really counterintuitive. So your instinct is going to be to pitch and to lead with your deals, your returns, and even your differentiator, because you think that's where you do your positioning, but it's actually not. We're going to ask you to do the opposite. So we're going to ask you to focus, kind of take a step back and focus on presence and conversation and listening over credentials and pitches. And then after the event, this is where, honestly, I've known Melanie for a few years. She is exceptional. Like, I don't even know how she does it. But this is also where most people lose everything that they might have built. And it's not about being the first person in the inbox on the Monday morning. Like, that's not the game. You're not going to get a gold star for being first in the inbox, right? Like, you really have to understand that presence piece of how you've interacted with somebody to really know how to follow up. If you follow up too late or too generically, too early, or worst of all, not at all. So follow through is where the relationship actually starts to take root and get built. And the event is just the introduction. All right. So with all that being said, Melanie, let's go into phase 1.
Great. Well, listen, thanks everybody for joining us today. Danielle, thank you for everything you do. The family office community is such a gift to organizations trying to raise capital, that to find somebody who has a heart for making that community better and striving to make sure we can all interact correctly and most efficiently is something that's near and dear to my heart. So thank you for the opportunity to join. I'm hoping when everybody leaves today, you've got 2 or 3 tips that you're like, oh my gosh, I've never thought of that. So that would be our goal, and we'll touch on a lot of things. So buckle up and here we go. The event prep, right? So this is before you walk in. Everybody thinks this is pretty obvious, but you want to know who's in the room before you get there, right? You're going to pull the attendees list. You're going to pull the speaker list. You're going to research firms. One of the things I always tell people is we're not going to go research them on LinkedIn by pulling them up and spending time on their profile. Because if you don't know it, that every time you look at them, they're getting a notification that you're looking at them. So the last thing we want to do is be that stalker, right? So find out ways you can learn about people. You can use their website. You can use every bit of resources that ISS is providing you. And you know what I do, which I love, and here's a little, take it down. I take a screenshot if it's the people, like a picture of them, if it's what they do, if it's what the family office does, I take a screenshot of it and I put it in a folder that says Opal July 2026, right? I know that's where they're going to be. And when I'm in the elevator going down to the event, I'm scrolling through that folder of photos so that I'm like, oh yeah, okay, remember you want to meet this person and you want to meet this person. That does not mean I'm going to run over to them at the coffee stand and introduce myself. But it does mean in my head, I'm just cognizantly aware of who I want to be in front of and why I want to be in front of them. Because we all know that all blurs together when you get there and you're like, oh, wait, this is the person I need to know. Why do I need to know them? If you've been, scrolling through screenshots since you've been on the airplane, you're ready for that connection. Okay. I always say this when you're in the elevator, because I do spend time in the elevator, going through screenshots. Pay attention to around you. I like to register the night before. I like to have my name tag on before I get in the elevator because most people will register that morning. Sometimes you can only register in the morning. But if I have the opportunity to wear my name tag in the elevator, somebody that's coming down 9 times out of 10 will look at me and go, now where was that? And I'm like, oh, let me show you. It's just right around the corner. I'm heading to get coffee, right? You've already made a connection. You have no idea who this person is, if they're going to help you or not. But if you lead with value this entire time, 3 days of how can I help people around me, I promise you will leave with people chasing you. Okay. So,
Oh, good.
yeah, so that was the first one. So, the next one we always talk about is know who you're actually going to meet, right? People think when they walk in the room, let's say you think you're going to meet, XYZ from the family office, and the family office is a giant retailer that you're dying to get in front of because you have the best retail tech that's going to change their world. The problem is you're not meeting the CEO of that company. You're meeting the gatekeepers. Those people trust and value and want to find great opportunities for the money they're trying to invest. So always know who you're approaching. I had one person show up one time and they were totally decked out in a luxury brand that was, I'm going to say was meeting with a retailer that's in Arkansas that probably doesn't value that. So know who you're meeting with, know who you're trying to resonate with. And I'm not telling you to be somebody you're not, but really know your audience because it's important when you're going to try to go connect with them to know who you're meeting. So think about that as you're preparing and as you're walking into the room. People always say, have your 90 seconds ready, right? This is not a pitch. It really is a clear, composed answer to what do you do? It invites a conversation. It basically doesn't want to talk about your returns. It's your thesis, your approach. And I cannot say this strongly enough. It's in a language that non-specialists can follow, right? Because again, you are not talking to the guy that has a patent on energy tech. You're talking to the financial expert who runs his money. So speak to them, not in a way that you're speaking down to them, but there are lots of ways. And boy, AI can help you if you haven't realized that yet. Take it. I think they've decided that if you ask for it in the language of a 10th grader, that's the ideal language to ask for a translation. So that's not so low. It's not that of a 3rd grader or a 5th grader, no matter what the TV shows tell you. It is basically a 10th grader because then you have some knowledge, but you're not asking them to be an expert to understand. So, again, I tend to try to say a lot because I know we don't have a lot of time. AdaPia is usually good at telling me you're talking too fast and too much.
No, you're
So,
good.
No, not enough. I'm taking notes.
So I love it.
No,
So
yeah.
maybe with that, let's because one of the things I know that we both want to do is kind of save questions for the end because you guys are all about to walk in these rooms. How can we help you be smarter, stronger, faster, right? So that everybody in that room wins. So maybe with that, AdaPia, should we go ahead and transition to in the room?
Yeah, let's transition into the room. There's a couple things I did want to throw in too about Melanie, something that you said too is, when knowing who's in the room, obviously if you're sponsoring something, you should usually get some amount of, like, maybe you get a list or like other sponsors. I think it's always also really good to understand who's speaking, because you're spending oftentimes thousands of dollars to go. So like really make the most of it. I know, having a really deep marketing CMO background and CRO background, that you can't always do a cost of acquisition calculation on your conferences, but you spend a lot of money and a lot of time on it. So really, if you have any amount of a list or knowing who's there, seeing who the speakers are, you can go online and look at, okay, this person from this company is going to be speaking there. Who else is probably going to be in the room with them? They don't usually go alone, especially not if they're sponsoring. So you can see just from having their websites, because people still have websites, they still matter. We'll kind of get into that a little bit at the end. So like you can find other ways. I've also found that there's these pre-event apps where you can do some pre-networking as well. That might be a good place to sort of, I'll say, lurk, kind of like what Melanie was saying. Like, you might not immediately go in there and like, oh, let's meet. Like, I've seen a lot of that. That is not the right thing to do, is to chase people down on the pre-event app. But it does give you an additional way of seeing who's there. And here's a don't take that list. Don't put it into your AI, scrape the web for their emails, and try to reach out to them beforehand. I think we've all experienced that LinkedIn has changed a lot, for example, and now everything is some form of a sales DM. Be aware that very sophisticated people do not respond to those DMs. So that is a big no-no in my book, to just try to scrape the web with AI and then just send all these DMs. You're far better off doing some of the stealth research that Melanie was saying, possibly running into them, finding a way to see them, and then introducing yourself in a more organic way. And this is why events across the board are coming back. We're still doing a lot of digital stuff, of course, but in real life, like IRL, like personal touch, literal physical, like in the room with somebody, we're starting to move back to that a lot more, just because there's actually more trust that's able to be built, because there's so much deep fake and mistrust online. So that's really important, which goes into the know who you're actually going to meet. And then just the last thing I'll say too is, and Melanie, I don't know if you're going to talk about it here or a different slide, but when we say family office, who from the family office is going to be there? Is it the CIO? Is it the next generation of the family office? Is it, like, you're not really likely to meet the person who exited and now has a $500 million family office, right? So this is also a really important thing about that. And so that when you are speaking to somebody, the positioning, your 90 seconds, it's not, did I memorize my pitch? It's, did I say it in a way that that person understands? That's really important. Am I speaking in a way that they're receiving it, or am I just speaking in a way that makes me sound and feel really good about my product? And I know I've done a lot of capital raising, and you get excited and you're like, this could be so good for you. But is it? Is it what they really want? Is it what they're really looking for? So these are these nuances that require you to get out of your persona and into the other person's viewpoint. And that's where that relationship starts. All
There's a
right.
pertinent question just in terms of
Yeah.
phase one and doing, all your preliminary research. When it comes to the speakers, say there's someone you're really interested in hearing speak, you'd love to connect with them. How do you feel about trying to connect with them in advance on LinkedIn? Is that a good strategy, or better to kind of try to let it happen more organically?
So let me paint this picture. You reach out to them on LinkedIn. They have no idea who you are. Maybe their assistant accepts it. Maybe she doesn't. Don't you think it makes so much more sense to reach out after the event and say, I loved your presentation because of one, two, and three, right? You all of a
So
sudden have
valuable.
differentiated yourself. You're not one of those 450 people that have just said connect, connect, connect. I
Yes.
always say, remember, when somebody lets you into their LinkedIn world, they are giving you access to everyone that they have. That is a level of trust that a lot of people don't give up easily. So lead with
Mhm.
value. You'll hear me say that over and over, whether it's, let me show you where the registration desk is or other things that we're going to get into. But lead with value every time you're at these events. And those people that you really want to find, you will find them even if you don't shake their hand as they walk off the stage. I promise.
Such good
Mm-hmm.
advice. There's lots of in the chat, and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So speaking of which, so now we're in the room. And like number one, this is the hardest thing we're going to ask you to do today is do not pitch your deal. That is not why people go to events. People go to be around their peers, to learn, to hear what's going on, what strategies are working. I've noticed a lot in family office events, like it's like 50% business, 50% wellness.
Mm.
There's right there's and obviously it's all wrapped up in legacy. So people, especially the families or like ultra high net worth individuals, if they're going themselves to these events, they're most likely going to learn from their peers. They're going to learn about how to pass on the family legacy, how to set their values so that that wealth is not lost by the third generation, which is statistically true. Like they're going for other reasons. They're going to connect with people, and a lot of these events, especially the smaller ones, are really built around true, authentic connection as opposed to deal making. So if you lead with a pitch of your deal with somebody that's really there to learn about how to make sure that everything that, let's say, their father worked really hard for is maintained, and you're like, with your like, your trench coat, like, look at my deal, like, that's just like, you have to understand, like, that is just not, that's just not gonna work. It's gonna be really off-putting, and it's the opposite of what we're trying to do, which is form some kind of a connection, some kind of a common thread. And I know, your deal's your pride. And like I said, it's so much, so many of us, when we've built a firm or, let's say we're real estate operators, we put a lot of hard work into it. You're actually better off in that case speaking to somebody as an equal instead of as like, hey, can essentially comes across as, can I have your money?
Right.
So if you speak as an equal, if you speak as a business owner who's going through similar, um, situations or struggles, sometimes there's a lot more vulnerability in the world today in terms of how we connect with people. You're going to get so much farther along than just saying, hey, I have this really great deal, because people feel if they're being pitched. They feel if they're being treated as an object or something to be extracted from. We feel it. And so we have to be really aware that that is going to immediately put somebody's buckles up, which is why number two, we're saying lead with humility and not credentials. So Melanie, do you want to jump in on that one?
Yes, listen, I love this. There's a few things I love to do when you walk in a room, and then I got a quick story for you, which is, one, don't be on your phone when you're sitting at the table. You're there to listen to presentations. You may have a really important job and you may want to be typing away, returning emails. That just sends, again, your whole goal is to set a great impression about you, because the people in that room want to know if they can trust you to put you in front of the people that they care about and that are making the investments. So what can you do to build this persona of somebody that's respected and hardworking and respectful? So when you're in there, don't be on your phone. One of the things I do is I never walk up to an empty table. Do not go sit at the table that has no one. Go sit at a table that has 4 or 5 people, that holds 10, right? Most of the time we're looking at round tables of 8 to 10. Sometimes you'll get long tables. I can do it in that situation too. It's a little harder. You're kind of involving 2 tables with yours, but walk up to that table that has 4 or 5 people. And basically just introduce yourself. Maybe it's across the table, right? I don't necessarily just introduce myself to the person here. Everyone is on their phones because they want to act busy because that's what everybody does at these events. So you know that you can tell if somebody's trying to, put out a fire or if somebody's just an introvert, right? So many of these people are introverts. And I always tell people I am an introvert that lives in an extrovert's world. So while it seems like it's easy for people to walk up, it's okay to walk up and say, hey, I don't think we've met. If you say that across the table to somebody and they go, oh, well, I'm so and so from, San Diego, California. I work with XYZ. All of a sudden, the other three people at the table have gotten an introduction. And you can kind of pull them into this conversation. Now you have five people at the table who have met you. You might know who they are from your notes. You may not have any idea who they are. You can say, what do you do? You can say, what is the number one thing you're here to find? I love that question because it gives them a chance to, just say, I'm learning about what's available, right? But take that opportunity to connect people. You're leading with value. Now, all of a sudden, four people who would have never met each other have been introduced. So lead with value. I love to do that. Do not type 90 to nothing on your laptop. You know what I don't want to look at? Your bright screen when I'm trying to look at the speaker. Now, that's an old thing. I get it. But I do take notes on my phone. I always have the memo section. I usually have it titled by day and I keep the whole thing there. Because you know what? You can throw that to ChatGPT at the end of it or Claude or Grok, whichever one you use, and they will kind of help you have this entire thing you can put in a folder. But what I always do at the beginning is I'll say kind of loud with the people I'm around, oh, I'd love to type this on my phone so you don't have to listen to it, right? That way they don't think I'm emailing people, I'm not paying attention. They can tell, and a lot of times people go, hey, I missed that. Could you give me that? And then I have a chance. I'm like, well, yeah, I'll just screenshot it and send it to you. Now I have their text info, right? So but again, it's leading with value. I'm just trying to help them. I'm not trying to be obnoxious. I'm not trying to get in their phones. It just gives me a chance to connect with them. I had this one person one time that I went with who came from a large investment banking firm. I love, the top 5 investment banking firms. They're amazing. And when people lead there, they all think that they're amazing and they think you should know that they're amazing. So we get to this conference and they're all introducing themselves. Oh, I just came from XYZ shop. I won't even throw them under the bus. And basically led like everybody should want to know them. Well, some of these investment banks have a reputation, and any of you that are coming from it will understand it's my home team too. So I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. But when you get out there, people might have negative connotations about some of the investment banks. So you don't ever want to put yourself in a position where they're like, oh, yeah, those guys, took us to the cleaners. My boss tried to bring Walmart public and that one wouldn't see him, right? Whatever it is, you want to make sure you don't alienate the people at your table when you're trying to ingratiate them. So lead with humility. You don't need to lead with your credentials. If you add value, these people will say, I need a second conversation. I know AdaPia has said before, and I love it, family offices don't buy the wow, they buy humility paired with intelligence. And that's what you're looking to deliver. So that's my pitch on don't lead with your resume.
Hmm. I love all the AI use cases. I am an avid note taker and it just helps me retain information, but I love the efficiency. So I'm like, just feed your handwritten notes. It's brilliant.
So easy.
Great.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Yeah. And one thing too, like something that I've personally been reflecting a lot on as an LP who's, for all of you who are more private equity, like fund managers or operators of sorts, that I'm in a lot of deals where I can tell now looking back at my book, which people I would invest again with and which I wouldn't. And one of the things that came very clear to me, and I am not a family office, but I will not be so quick again to invest with people that I really have not gotten to know well. It's kind of like that dating reference because you don't actually know who someone is until you go through something difficult with them. And at the operator or the fund manager sponsor level, there's nothing more true than what happens, like what happened to commercial real estate in 2022 until now and still ongoing. And so I can completely appreciate and understand why family offices have multiple levels of walls. It's like a Mission Impossible maze because everyone's great when everything's going great. And as you get to know somebody over time, and I've really come to appreciate the approach of family offices, especially the ones that are more directly involved, not their CIO. I mean, that person has a very clear mandate. But like, let's say a family or a high net worth individual that's doing some of their own vetting is in the lead up to doing a deal or partnership of some kind, because they'll never do syndications, just so you know, that they want to hear the moments and the stories where they can understand who is this person when things go sideways. Who, how will this person treat me? And are they going to steward the capital? Are they going to be good partners over time? Because, like, some of these deals last longer than marriages. And we really like true, like, there's, and so with that, that's why they're never going to just respond to the deal. They get pitched a bazillion deals. Like, they want to understand, is this person going to see it through in the best possible way and as a true partner? And actually, you should be thinking the same thing, because honestly, not all family deals are good for you as an operator, a small operator, especially, where all your control rights are taken. And like, everybody, when they're starting to move from friends and family and high net worth individuals, they want to move upstream. They think it's going to be a holy grail because it's one check and it's easier. It's fewer economics. It's way less control. You can get kicked out as a manager. Like, there's so many things to be really aware of. So you should also, this is why, know who you're pitching, know their mandate, know their reputation, because you're also going to filter out and really find, like, there's probably like four or five that you really have honed in on, that these are going to be the ones that I'm going to get to know them and they're going to get to know me. And there's just going to be a lot more of that, because just where we are, I won't get into the macro and the economics and the markets and everything, but there's just a lot more of this. Can I really trust this person to do the right thing when times are tough? And that is, you can only tell when you're getting to know somebody and they might tell you a story over dinner and you go, oh, that person, that's a good one. Or they might let something slip that you go, that is a red flag, right? This is why they take so long to get to know you. They're really trying to vet, are you going to be a good partner?
So true. There was one investor, and he said he always makes sure he sets up dinner and he'll have the spouse come, and all the
Mm,
little body language, the nuance, like how they interact, their relationship. And I'm like, oh, it was pretty smart, because
yeah.
these, like you said, these deals, they can outlast, they
Yeah.
often last multiple generations. So
Yeah.
Well, and Danielle, when you're talking about dinners, when people, I have clients that'll take you to dinner and see how you treat the staff, right? How do you
Mm,
treat everybody? And I always tell people interviewing, if you walk into a family office, you better be really nice to the lady up front, because they will come out and say, what'd you think about them? Right? Were they talking in the lobby about, she hears everything. He hears everything, whoever it is at the front desk. So always be, aware that you're performing, and make sure that you're who you are, but that you actually
true.
are, which I think kind of takes us into the next step. But treat everybody like you want to be treated, because everybody's evaluating how you're going to treat them.
Powerful.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Melanie, I think you might have like a story about this, about like the family office that doesn't identify themselves either, which is why you don't dismiss anyone. Like, I recently went to an event and I connected with somebody over like the candy room. There was this big room of like a snacks room, and we just happened to be there, and it was just like a really easy way to connect with somebody. It wasn't like deal, and like, as I got to know this person over time, I just like really connected on something really little. And what I appreciated is, this person, now knowing this person's background, they treated me with so much respect. And I saw other people try to like really heavily pitch this person, and this person, all they wanted to do was have a conversation with me about, something completely unrelated, something personal. And they were leading with personal and really trying to get away from the person that was like, oh, deal this and deal that. What deal did you do? And like, almost like trying to compare themselves to show that they're at their level. It was really interesting. And here I was just like laughing about like, raiding the candy room. And, these are sort of like these small things. And I was treating that person as I would treat anyone, just like trying to, just trying to connect. But you could really see, and this is really important. It's reading the room and reading the group. It's really understanding, are you just waiting for your turn to speak? I often actually don't speak a lot. I really listen to the way the conversation flows, and I can see if somebody is like inviting me into the conversation versus the person that is hogging the conversation because they want to be seen as the person. And so these are some of these nuances that are really important, and which is why like the listening is really important, because coming into a conversation in the right moment with fewer words is often a better approach than trying to dominate the conversation to show how good you are, how credentialed you are, or what have you. And so equally, um, the way you move through a room, people notice. They notice your energy. And that's not to say if you're an introvert that you're going to be completely dismissed, but that's the introvert that needs to kind of like show up a little bit. But, the person that goes around and like tries to like in 30 seconds understand, like, are you a good target for me? And if they're not, and we've all experienced this, the person that's like in 30 seconds, like trying to scan you if you're going to be like a good sales pitch for them, and then they move on. And so don't be that person. Don't,
That
just don't.
energy, like immediately, you're like,
No.
oh, okay.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. You're immediately like sometimes with like younger, like startup, like young kids, let's say that are coming, and they're immediately like, you can tell that they're like learning how to do it. And I think it's really sweet. But beyond that age, the humility piece and the not dismissing anyone is just so important, because we all can read each other whether we think about it consciously or not, but we're all reading each other in a room.
Well, and let me just close this with, when we say don't dismiss anybody, that means the people running the events. The people running the events are full of knowledge and information. And if you can go up and just thank the people who are getting you registered, putting the speakers on stage, getting lunch ready, right? You just have conversations with them throughout the day. Just, hey, how's it going? Boy, it's cold in here. I don't know how you stay warm. Whatever it is, just make those connections. Not only are you connecting with people, which no matter where it leads in a deal, that's a positive, but people are watching you and they watch how you bring other people in. Those people, the speaker on the stage, if I follow up afterwards, I'm like, listen, you did a brilliant job of navigating when the microphone went down and we had no, volume or whatever that is. And then they'll come back with something funny. And then I'm like, gosh, I'd love to connect with XYZ. And they're like, oh, here's the cell phone. Okay, thanks so much. Right? So just remember, when you lead with more of that genuineness, better things happen for everybody, deal wise and personally.
So a
Yeah.
little story. I'm like AdaPia, like well, and Melanie, both of you. I'm appear to be an extrovert, but far more introverted than people realize. And so I like to have a purpose, but not be on a mission, just be myself. And so in my early days of going to events, I would ask the event organizer, like, can you put me to work? Is there something I can do? And often they'd let me help with name tags, and like, what a great way to get to know people. And then when you're not work, they're like, oh, you don't work here. And it just opened up natural conversation and like greeting people with a smile. And so that was, yeah, my own little contribution.
Yeah,
Love it.
that's fun. That's so good. That's so good. Well, so as we know, so we've done the research. You understand who's in the room. You walked in with the right posture and the right attitude. You're listening more than you speak, and you make a real connection. So the event is over. So now what? After the event, as we say here, the fortune is in the follow up. And Melanie, I'm going to let you lead us through what happens next.
I love the follow up because no one does it. So, it is a chance to stand out, do what you say you're going to do. A lot of times I'll be looking for connections, right? If I've got an energy tech deal and I'm talking to a healthcare tech family office, I know they don't want to hear my deal. But I might know of somebody in the room they should know, right? Or somebody that I've worked with that has a deal they should know about. I'm still going to follow up and send them that. One of the things I love, because it's so hard, I know there's lots of different, when I saw the headline about, you'll leave with more business cards, I'm like, gosh, I hope people don't come going, oh my God, they're so old. I'm going to tell you, while I love the QR codes. That's great. You scan it, somebody goes into your LinkedIn, they go into your contacts, you never see them again, ever. So you have this entire thing, your contacts have grown by 210 people, and yet you have no idea who you met when. So one of the things I love to do is when you have the name tag, hold up the name tag and go, listen, I've met so many people. Would you mind? And I don't do this with everybody because you don't want to be the person taking 1,000 pictures. But if I have like 10 people, I'm like, would you mind if I just took a picture with your name tag? They'll hold up their name tag. I'll take the selfie. And then I literally throw that in the folder that I have for Opal 2026. And when I get to to the end of it and I'm doing follow up, I'm like, oh yeah, I needed to follow up with him and send XYZ. A lot of times if I take that selfie, I'll go, would you mind if I just texted this to you so you'll remember? I know you're meeting 300 people while we're here. Most of the time they're like, yeah, that'd be great. Just text it to me. So once I've texted them the selfie of the two of us, when I text them after the conference, and I go, hey, wanted to make sure I followed through and gave you XYZ. Happy to connect you. Sometimes I'll just go ahead and connect them via text. But what I do love to do is draw that line back to, we already took a picture, right? So then they're like, oh yeah, that's that crazy lady I met, on day 2. So, but I have the name and who it was because you won't remember everybody. And then when I text them with whatever it was we were going to follow up, and it might be my Calendly link that is like, listen, I would love to have another conversation with you and see if we might be the right fit for what you're looking for. Haven't asked them to pitch my deal, haven't asked for their whole team to be on the call. Let's just jump on for 15 minutes. Here's my calendar so it's easy for you to find a time, or please send me yours. Because some people are like, well, don't you think it's rude to just send your calendar? For me, I love it when people send a calendar because then I can just hit a time that I know works for me and send it back, right? Everybody, you should be keeping up with your regular calendar. And if you don't have a $16 a month Calendly account before you go to the next conference, get one. Because the reason things don't happen is people don't connect once they say they're going to. The easiest way to connect is to send that text message that says, would love to get back on the phone for 15 minutes in case it's worth your time. I'm not asking you to hear my deal. I'm just saying that I think it would be a good chance to connect, right? I'm not really leading with value unless I've connected them to the person they're looking for. And if you've offered to do that, never, ever, ever walk away without doing it. I get conversations all the time from clients that are like, listen, you are the only person that always does exactly what you tell us you're going to do. So over deliver, under promise, and follow through. And so I always like to say the timing is everything. So let's talk about that real quick. You leave an Opal event, let's say it ends on Thursday afternoon, right? People like to get back to the airport and they're like frantically sending text messages. You know what I don't want to do on Thursday afternoon after 3 days of networking, introvert or extrovert, is answer text messages about the event. So yes. What I always tell people is if it finishes on a Thursday, those people are going to get back to their office on Friday and be inundated, both by the people from the conference and everything they've missed for the last 3 days. They're going to take Saturday to reconnect with their friends and family and maybe their dog. And then on Sunday, they're basically going to come back and go, okay, I've got all morning, but by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and for some reason, 3 p.m. Eastern time is a great time. But you send the follow-up text, email. Email's usually better because they can get it whenever. Text is a little more personal, but if you feel like you have that relationship or that's the selfie that you took, send that. But follow up with them at 3 o'clock on a Sunday that just says, hope you've been able to catch your breath after the event. Would love to reconnect. Think we have a lot to offer each other, right? It's not, I think my deal is great for you. And if I can learn more about you, I may find other people that you need to know. Whatever it is that just says, I'm not out here like everybody else. If I sat with them at one of the tables, like if that was one of the 4 or 5 people I met before a certain speaker, the title of the, subject line is always very important. So spend time figuring out what your subject line is. Follow up after Opal, that's not it. Because everybody in the world will say that, right? A lot of times, like I'll have on a blouse like this, and I'm like, purple, blouse from day 2. So something that they're like, oh yeah, I remember that lady, something that makes you memorable, something that you connected about. Hope that your coffee wasn't as cold by the time you got home, right? If you sat down, they're like, oh, this coffee's really cold, or the room's freezing, right? We can all, usually connect over that. So just think about the timing is everything. If you follow up on that Thursday afternoon or Friday, I can almost guarantee you that your email or text will get lost. But if you know your audience and you can kind of think about when the right time to be in front of them again is, you have a much greater likelihood of making that happen. And if you actually include a calendar where all they have to do is click on it and go, yep, I'm around Tuesday at 3 o'clock, then all of a sudden you have exactly what you hoped for and you didn't have to chase it. So maybe that's a good place to, turn it over to you, AdaPia, and I'll think of some other
Yeah.
things I've forgotten.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
that's
really
right.
so much. Like the two things that really come to mind for me are, um, if you've had a good conversation. So a couple things, like Melanie keeps referencing her folder, right? Like write notes about the person that you met. And if you've had a good conversation about something and you see an article or something or other that reminds you of that conversation, send it. They might not
Mhm.
respond, and that's okay, but it shows that you really were listening and you thought
Mm.
about them and you said, hey, I remember we had this conversation. It could be 2 weeks later, it can be a month later, right? But if you have the notes about that person too, you can reference them every so often and say, oh, yeah, this person, and you might probably not physically remember what you spoke about, but that's why you put the notes in so that you think, okay, let me reach out to them. What can I provide of value? And honestly, like it seems like maybe really simple, but that's kind of the point. Like, hey, I just thought of you. I read this article or I saw this thing, this other, wanted to see how you were doing, thought you might find this interesting. So that's an easy way to do it as well. Or what I often do, and wherever your area of expertise is, especially if you've met somebody that isn't your exact target, you can say, hey, like, if you want to send me something to look at, I'm not an underwriter, but I've seen enough where in certain categories, I have a pretty good sense of it. Um, Let me take a look. Happy to do a quick whatever, like spend 15, 20, even an hour looking at something for somebody that could provide value or making a connection that can provide value. It's actually one of my favorite things to do is so often, and maybe this is to my own detriment, perhaps if I'm in a game for volume, which I'm not, is I will know if I'm not the right person for, like, let's say the services that I provide for them. I'm not going to push it because if I know that that person is not if I can't actually really help them, then I do not want them to come away with a bad taste of like maybe like trying to really persuade somebody to enter into an agreement of some kind or like, let's say, do a deal. If I know it's not right for them, I would often, when I was raising capital, I would very often tell people, listen, I really don't think this is the right thing for you. It sounds like. Um, and man, they would refer all the time. They would come back around maybe later because they appreciated that I wasn't trying to close them right away. I was saying, hey, not me, but I do know somebody over here that does a really fantastic job in, like, let's say mobile home parks, or like they were interested in something else at the time, because we all have these great networks. So it just builds that relationship in a different way that's very non-grabby, non-taking, and it's very giving without it having to devolve into what can sometimes feel like overgiving. And I know I've certainly done that where I've overgiven in the name of providing value, and then I've been taken advantage of. So we also have to know where to draw that line. And that's part of why you're also vetting that relationship, not just the other way around. And I think it kind of all falls into a power dynamic of they don't have more power just because they have capital. You're not trying
Mm.
to impress them. This is not power. This is trying to find the right partnership. It's on this level, not on this level that you're trying to somehow, Jenga your way out of it. You're trying to find, like, is this like this? And so I think that's more of an attitude around the whole conversation. Um, because at the end of the day, it's all about partnerships. And that's why, again, like the follow up, like there are people that I might follow up with months. Like it can be months that I don't talk to somebody, but then something sparks it for me.
Yeah.
And we'll get into this here too, is the digital presence, the how you use, let's say you're like LinkedIn, like there's little things that you can do. And Melanie and I are very passionate about this, is, are you showing up online? as you showed up in person? Like, does your LinkedIn match your website match, like, whichever channels you're using? Some of us are on Substack these days as well. Like, are we showing up truly as ourselves or as this performance that we put on at the event?
Mm. So important. There is a question from one of our attendees, and you
Mhm.
kind of addressed this, AdaPia, with talking about like the way you can follow up with an article or something really thoughtful that shows you've listened. And this
Mhm.
attendee asked, what kind of value-added follow-up actually earns attention from family office professionals without feeling like a sales pitch? So I think you answered it in that
Yeah.
example. Do you, either one of you, have other examples?
Well, I think that's the treasure box question, right? Because the reality
Mhm.
is, did you listen to them? What's important to them is not what's important to you or to me or to Adapia. It's what's important to them. So I had a guy who was raising, $150 million, and we had this great conversation, and my deal wasn't, or my people weren't the right people for him. But I basically found this, he was trying to do RV parks, and the biggest problem is you have a water shortage, right? So I had found ways around the water shortage and something that one of the communities was doing in one of the states, and I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, we can use this as a roadmap," right? All of a sudden, a month later, he turns around and sends me some big deal that I was just staying in front of him. So the answer is that's really why you get reported for listening. But what is important to that person, it's never going to be the same. I wish I could tell you, oh, it's going to be this or it's going to be that. LinkedIn
Mhm.
has great articles. Fortune has great articles. You just read some. You don't have to read all day and you don't have to be thinking of other people all the time. But I bet 5 times a week I email somebody in my network and go, I thought this would be of interest to you. Right. So just listen to what's important to them and think about what would be, you might meet. I always love when people dismiss the 26-year-old who's just out of graduate school, who's basically the heir apparent to this family office that no one's paying any attention to, right? No one. And so if you got to take that person under your wing, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, this might be really great for you to learn more about business in today's age, or how to use AI in business, how you give them things that make them look smart at the table, and you will stand out to them every time.
I love everything you guys have said, and then kind of that value in connecting people as well, in that ties into how you show up online. So often when I read something or it's like someone's post and I'm like, oh my gosh, so and so would get such great value, and so you like tag them in the comment, and it's amazing the way that's like helped bring people together. It's so simple, but again, it's like having these people's interest in mind. And I don't know if it's just characteristics of us connectors, but it's a great way to build
Yeah.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think like from the capital raising perspective, like investor relations, like the word is inherent. It's relations. It's really like that is a personal nuance. And all investing, especially private investing, is based on relationships, as you don't really have much else to fall back on, and it's so trust based. So it is. It's very nuanced, and I know we're running out of time here, but the
Some
the
really
thing
good
about
questions.
just like I know we'll definitely get to questions because I know a few months ago you did a really great event about LinkedIn. And it
Yeah.
is still really important. I know I kind of bashed it earlier because the algo changed. However, um, we do still need to show up, even if, we don't have to have the perfect micro content strategy on LinkedIn. But like when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, they're going to show up in your feed. So at least at a minimum, like their post, go through their profile, comment on something if you see it come up. Like those are some immediate things you can do, like let's say in the week following, and make sure you've posted something immediately following that event because it will show up for them because you're a new connection. So there's like these little things, but the important thing is that your positioning and your messaging and your overall posture and what you do needs to be consistent, and that's why it still matters a lot. And how you show up needs to also be equally how you show up online.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to move to, I don't want to cut any of this, like I've taken so many notes. This has been so informative. You guys have sparked so many incredible ideas. And yeah, such a great active audience. There's a lot of really great questions here if you guys are ready for them.
Sure.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
amazing. Well, the very first one immediately that came in was, are we willing to share this deck? When I send out the
Oh,
recording, would you guys
yeah,
be all right sharing the deck with the attendees?
Sure.
absolutely.
All right, Samuel, there's your answer. So when I send out the recording tomorrow, we will send this out. Also, I'm curious, what is the best way for people who want to learn more about each of your work to learn more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna say go to LinkedIn and look up AdaPia Dorico. My name is very easy to find. I'll probably be the first person to show up. And I know so Melanie and I have actually prepared a link that I think we'll share in the email. And
Oh, good.
Melanie, because I've got a I'm afraid of going off full screen here, but if you have our link to put in the chat, you can book a call with us. Melanie and I work together with sponsors on everything from capital readiness to capital raising, et cetera. So you book a time with us and, you can work with us one-on-one. And so that will be included. But for me, LinkedIn is going to be the place.
Okay, amazing. We'll include that in tomorrow's so that everyone has that information. All
Yeah.
right, this is a great question. Do you recommend paying to speak at these events? I've noticed some people pay, so an anonymous attendee.
That's a hard one. I think it depends if how big your organization is. Like if you're a larger organization and you have a budget for it, you should definitely consider it. Um, and so much of it, I would need to know so much more about who you are, like the size of you, like does it make sense? Is that money better placed doing an investor tour of some kind, like a referral tour? Like there's so many different questions there. Sometimes it is. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's definitely worth it. But you have to do a full evaluation of what event it is, like a full evaluation, and do that relative to other things.
And a lot of times I like to go to an event and see, who speaks and knowing that they've paid to speak and then ask them afterwards, right? Hey, you did a great job. So great to, be a part of your presentation. Do you feel like you got a lot of feedback, good feedback from it, right? You can ask them that 2 weeks afterwards. But if you go to an event and you know those people have paid to speak on stage, look around and see if you think it makes a difference. If you know your pitch and you get into the room and you sit at these tables with 4 or 5 people, you don't need to pay anybody to tell your idea. You can find your people. And sometimes people are really good at that. If you're not really good at it, then maybe it's great practice to get up there and pitch your deal. But I do think it really helps if you're going to pay a lot of money to stand on a stage. I want to see how that impacts other people first.
Mhm.
Mm,
And from watching some of these more pay to play type conferences, the pure pitch can get you kind of tune out. And again,
Yep.
but if you can captivate your audience, if you can reveal more or surprise, delight, something different. I always say lead with value education, which is everything we've been saying. And to me, those are the conversations that help get the visibility and don't just turn people right off like, oh, it's the paid speaking time. Now I'm going to take my coffee break.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also just like as we close up too with, with what you have with family office access, I think this is really important because we're on this particular webinar, your platform is um the list is amazing, cleanest list out there for family offices. But just because you get the list, it like doesn't mean that if you email somebody on that list, they're going to respond. Like this is so important. Identifying the target, right? Let's use marketing and sales language for a second, doesn't mean that they're going to respond, which is why all the preparation, all of that piece, which is what Melanie and I specialize in, is so very, very important, as well as having a long-term approach, because that's another place where this is not a quick win. This is not a lottery. It's not a lightning strike. It's really a discipline, and it takes a long time. There's ways to shortcut it that have a lot to do with some of the things that we spoke about. But like you have the best list in the industry, but the expectation shouldn't be that just because I have a list that they're going to want what I've got. That's just not human nature,
I
right?
love that distinction. It's so important. It's like without the strategy, it's just data. So I appreciate that distinction. Now, I know it's the
Yeah.
top of the hour. I want to be respectful to your time. There are many unanswered questions. Would it be best? I can save those questions and have them sent over. Would that be best so that
Yeah.
Why
um,
don't Yeah,
All
I
right.
think that's probably great. So everybody doesn't, have to stay on. But what I'd love to do is leave you with one more tip trick for the end. And Danielle, if you have one more question that you want to do after that, that you think everybody needs to know, let's do that. Listen, when you get back to your desk and the family office says, yeah, we'd love to see your deal. Let's jump on Zoom. When you jump on Zoom, you need a background, right? It cannot be
Mm.
blurred. That tells you that no, there's a whole study on the believability of people who blur their background. If I can't believe your background, how am I supposed to believe you? I don't know why that's a thing, but it is. So do not blur your background. Do not be in the car ever. So if you're in the car and you're
Mm,
driving because you didn't want to change the meeting because you didn't want to cancel it, all you're telling me is your time's more valuable than mine because I have to watch this moving target behind you, which I don't want to do. So when you get a chance to someone gives you 15, 30 minutes even of their time. I was on one time with a CEO who literally vaped through the entire presentation. He was raising
Oh.
$7 million and was in front of a venture capital company who had said, yeah, we think we want to give this to him. And at the end of it, they
mm,
were like, this guy can't even step away from an addiction and listen, I'm no health expert. I'm not trying to give you advice on that, but put it away for 30 minutes.
yeah.
Be who you were in the room and be somebody that the family office is not embarrassed to put in front of everybody. Your
Mm.
background's professional. There's not a bunch of, barking dogs in the background and we can't all help the blowers and the, lawn guys, but think about how you're going to show up when you do get that next step and you get to pitch for 30 minutes. Make it count.
Amazing. Well, I'll close on this. There were several, but one, this is great for kind of those next steps. They say if the whole point of the first conversation is to get a second one, what should the expectation be when we land that second call or meeting? And this is from Uma.
Melanie, you want to take it?
Okay, yeah, sure. I just lead with value. You want to come to the call with something that will help them, right?
Mm.
Here's the other thing where you're like, okay, well, we didn't talk enough. I don't know what could help them. Go into the call with the three things you learned from that event, right? Let me
Mhm.
just tell you the three things I came away with, and I'd love to hear one thing you came away with, right? Just continue to make the connection. You can't just get a call. Sometimes you can get a call and you can probably read it and know whether this guy is just in a big hurry, kind of thought he wants to hear your deal. If you feel like it's the right time, I mean, AdaPia has a great saying, which is if you ask for capital, you get advice. And if you ask for advice, you get capital. So if you can ever trade with somebody, hey, let me hear your deal. And let me pitch you ours. And then that person probably knows two people you can call in energy tech versus their healthcare tech world, right? And I just use those for simple examples, but just go
Yeah.
into the call. How can I make them smarter before we get off the call? And it might be the three things I learned. It could be the two most important people I met at the conference,
Mm.
right? You're not giving away your own, people don't like to talk about that because they're like, oh, I met that person. I don't want to give them, any more
Mm,
information. Give as much as you can and it will all come back to you. I promise. I promise.
yeah.
Wow.
And use the time in between to do the research.
Yeah.
Now is the time to go on their
Yeah.
LinkedIn and to like really
Yes.
do some research. This is where
Like the
you can go and
relevant.
do the sleuthing. Yeah, so that you come truly prepared for I did my research, understand that, like, especially if they do want to know about what you do, because now it's more of a business conversation initially, because they're using it to screen, then you come prepared with the business. But understanding whether it's a good fit for them is vitally important. And if it's not, that's okay. Still show up professionally and say, hey, I think, I understood looking online that it looks like you're more interested in this and I do this. I'd still love to tell you about what I do, and then if that's not the fit, that when what Melanie is saying is like, but here's how I could provide you some value. So you have to parlay it so they remember you, so that they refer you to somebody potentially, or they might move into that strategy or that asset class one day and say, you know what, this person actually didn't try to like force the square peg into the round hole.
I think that research, that effort you put in, that's your investment in the relationship. And I think it speaks volumes when people come in and it's personalized, the show me you know me. It's not just, oh, here's my
Mhm.
blanket and I don't know if this is even relevant to you. So well, this has been such an informative hour. You both are incredible. I have so many new tips and tricks, and I can tell from the audience reactions just how valuable this has been. I can't thank you enough. And
Thank you.
I hope that our paths get to meet soon in person at one of these future events.
Look
Yes.
forward to it. Thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for
Thank
what you
you.
do for this community. I just love it.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, thank you
Yeah.
both. And thank you everyone in the audience. It was a great turnout. I hope everyone has a
Yeah.
wonderful rest of the week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.